everyone, to Einstein's Eyes. Today, we're going to dive into a fundamental question. What is an ophthalmologist? Now, I'm going to talk about this. This seems obvious. You're all here listening to ophthalmologists speak week after week. My partner and co-host, former co-resident at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, John Dickoff, is on a well-deserved vacation, so I'm here bringing the information to you solo. And today we're going to explore the history of ophthalmology, training required, current statistics, gender distribution, how these specialists are distributed across the US, especially here in Alaska, my state. And we'll talk about some of the big breakthroughs that are shaping the future of ophthalmology and eye care, like AI diagnostics, gene therapy, bionic eyes, eye transplants. One was done at NYU with a facial transplant not too long ago, unheard of in the past. And these are all mind-boggling things. And even Elon Musk's Blindsight project that got FDA approval recently at his Neuralink company, where he will be able to, as he says, make the blind see with implants in the occipital cortex. So let's get started. Ophthalmology has been around for thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians described eye diseases as early as 2600 BCE, before the Common Era. And in the medieval Islamic world, a scientist known as Al-Hazan in what's now known as Iraq, 965 to 1040 or thereabouts, he was a medieval polymath regarded as the father of modern optics. He wrote a book, a 7-volume book of optics that laid the foundations for later advancements in ophthalmology and vision care. Now, even before him, in ancient India, 5th century BCE, was Sushruta, an early pioneer of surgery, often called the father of Indian surgery. He was first recorded to describe cataract surgery, which is couching, where they took a cup and they would slam it against your eye, causing the lens, a mature lens, to fall into the posterior pole, or we call the vitreous, allowing you to remove that real cloudy cataract and see a little bit better. Now, this wasn't great, but it was better. Beyond Al-Hazan and Shruta was Hermann von Helmholtz, 1821 to 1894. He was a renowned physicist, physiologist in Germany who invented the ophthalmoscope. Other renowned ophthalmologists include Alvar Gullstrand. He was a Swedish ophthalmologist and a Nobel Prize laureate in 1911. He described how light is focused in the eye and on optics. Sir Harold Ridley, 1906 to 2001, from Britain, really pioneered the intraocular lens, which is the implant that goes into the eye after cataract surgery. Charles Kellman, 1930 to 2004, a New Yorker, developed phacoemulsification, which is the modern way of removing a cataract, and it's much safer as an outpatient procedure and really the basis for modern small incision cataract surgeries. These are all some of the greats in ophthalmology. And interestingly, you won't see my name on that list, but we'll just move on. So what does an ophthalmologist do? An ophthalmologist is a medical doctor specializing in eye and vision care. Now, there are other specialties or professions in this space. There's an ocularist that makes a prosthesis for someone who's lost an eye that can cosmetically look very good after an eye is removed through something called an evisceration or an enucleation. There are optometrists who prescribe glasses and contacts, and they're looking to expand their scope of practice, but that's for another talk. Ophthalmologists diagnose and treat medical eye conditions, perform surgeries, and here's a typical operating room with an eye microscope where you can have multiple people looking through the lens and the patient's on the table. You have the anesthesiologist, you have a circulator to help the ophthalmologist. And then you have the surgeon usually at the head who does the cataract surgery with the phacoemulsification instrument. Ophthalmologists manage diseases like glaucoma, cataracts, macular degeneration, and diabetic retinopathy. They account for lots and lots of vision problems throughout the world. There are subspecialties within ophthalmology known as retina specialists, cornea specialists, pediatric ophthalmology, or ophthalmologist specialists. They deal with kids with crossed eyes or adults with crossed eyes, like esotropia or exotropia. Neuro-ophthalmology that interfaces with neurology and neurosurgery, and localize a vision problem originates from within the cranium, within the brain. An academic specialty, and there's oculoplastics, which is my specialty. I was also a neuro-ophthalmologist. I did combined fellowship with Jack Cannerdale in Pittsburgh. So I had that good fortune. I would like to show what my specialty focuses on, an oculoplastic and orbit specialist. Here is the orbit. It is a structure that houses the eye, it protects the eye from injury. It's composed of 7 bones. The sphenoid, which is the greater wing and the lesser wing of the sphenoid. Here's the optic canal where the optic nerve goes into the brain. From the eye, superior orbital fissure where the cranial nerves come through, the inferior orbital fissure, the zygomatic bone, which is the cheekbone, the maxilla, the lacrimal, ethmoid, and palatine. The lacrimal and ethmoid make the medial wall. The frontal bone is the roof. It's the sphenoid is the lateral orbital wall. The zygomatic bone, the lateral orbital wall, and the maxilla is the floor. And so someone like me, who's an orbital surgeon, oculoplastic surgeon, will fix fractures that usually result in an orbital floor fracture called a blowout fracture or medial wall fracture. An idea of what my specialty and orbital surgeons focus on. How would you become an ophthalmologist? So there's a lot of dedication, a lot of sacrifice. It takes some drive, some sacrifice. So there's 4 years of an undergraduate education. And I went to Amherst College, 4 years of medical school. I was at Boston University School of Medicine, and then I actually stopped and went and got a graduate degree at Harvard in immunology. Went back, finished up medical school at Boston City Hospital, did most of my training, clinical training. And then you go on and do a year of internship, and you can do a medical or surgical internship. I did mine at Montefiore Medical Center in New York at Albert Einstein. And then 3 years of ophthalmology training, ophthalmology residency, and I trained at Albert Einstein again with John, who's now on vacation, as I mentioned. And then you can go on and do a 1 or 2 year fellowship. I did a 14-month fellowship with Jack Cannerdale in Pittsburgh to learn neuro-ophthalmology and oculoplastics, and I spent time with George Berger as well. So I was really fortunate and got my training, and then came to Alaska at Ophthalmic Associates, and I've been here for 30 years. Let's talk numbers. In the past, ophthalmology really was male dominated, but it's changing. In 1980, only 8 ophthalmologists were women. By 2000, 20%. And today, women make up 35%, and the number is growing. And among ophthalmology residents, almost 50% are women. The gender gap is narrowing. So that's great for women. In the USA, ophthalmologists are not evenly spread out. They tend to congregate around cities like California, New York, and Florida. In fact, it's really tough to recruit people to come to Alaska. It's usually folks who grew up here and then wound up going to med school and became ophthalmologists. In Alaska, we only have around 25, 35, depending how you count, ophthalmologists serving a population of 730,000. That's roughly 5 special ophthalmologists per 100,000 people, compared to the national average of about 7.2 per 100,000. And we have a very large state with a primitive infrastructure. So there's a lot of other ways that we see patients. And we do have the military, and we do have the native sector, which does contribute and help meet some of those demands. Ophthalmologists primarily work in private practice, although the newer residents are working for hospitals and entities like Kaiser, the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic. So the number of private practice ophthalmologists are decreasing. Hospital-based ophthalmologists are increasing. And academia is also a place where people go, research, biotech, and government institutions like the VA. What is the future? So what's next for ophthalmology? We see really, really exciting breakthroughs. As I mentioned, I'm a big fan of what Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink, Blindsight. He has implanted brain implants into 3 people, I believe, one with ALS, one with a crushing injury to the spinal cord. And these people are now using Bluetooth technology, transmit impulses to a computer. It's really changed their lives, and it's remarkable. This was all Star Trek stuff, and now it's happening. The FDA gave Blindsight approval to put a brain implant and restore sight by bypassing the eyes altogether. It'd be like Geordi LaForge on Star Trek. AI-assisted diagnostics is starting to happen, which is detecting diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, macular degeneration faster than ever before. Gene therapy, Luxturna, restoring visions for people with genetic eye disease. Bionic Eyes Retinal Prosthetics, like the Argus 2, are giving sort of pixelated vision. These advancements make the ophthalmology future look brighter than ever. So I wanted to make a short video, and the big picture of ophthalmology is a fascinating field that blends medicine, surgery, technology to protect, diagnose, and restore vision through surgical procedures. If you enjoyed this, please share, like, subscribe. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.